Okay, everybody, we are live, and I want to take the time to welcome everyone to Her Expat Life's very first WombStorm, and wish everyone a very happy International Women's Day. We are here tonight tonight is Istanbul time, um, with a very dynamic panel of women who live abroad. And we are here just to discuss how the ways that we can create and take action from a place of deserving. My name is Candace. I am the founder of Her Expat Life, and I am joined today by our Chief Growth Officer, Mar Molay from Barcelona, Spain, Natalia Ivanova, that is in Puerto Rico, and Dr. Jennie, which Jennifer, actually, Dr. Jennifer, and you are where now?
I am in Portugal today, but I will be in
Portugal
Spain
today.
tomorrow.
Okay. I knew you were moving around a little bit, which is why I hesitated. But we are here tonight to talk about action and creativity from a place of deserving. And this very first WombStorms theme was created by our own lovely Miss Marmalade. And Mar, I just really want you to maybe touch on some of the points of what, why you came up with this particular theme, because I felt like it was so timely.
Yes, it was. The fact is, when I started entrepreneurship, I did it from a female standpoint. Like all the teachers, we did a group here in Barcelona, and all the teachers were really keen on us creating from this place, this feminine place. So from then, I started wondering what that was. And then one of the things that came out there later I developed is about creating from the womb. The womb is a space that's actually uh, female by definition, and it can be used not just for the biological, thing of creating babies, but it can be used to create a lot of things. And that is the central theme of the WombStorm, right? Because we have the brainstorm, which
Yes.
is a usual theme in business, right? We wanted to do that brainstorming from another place, which is more feminine based, and gives us a lot of empowerment because even if, for some reason, women don't want to have babies or or can have babies or have a lot of in their wombs, we think that we can use our wombs in another way and not just like use them, but
Right,
make
for physical reproduction.
exactly.
And you know what? I'm so happy that you touched on that, because I had a friend whose video went viral on TikTok, like over 4 million views on TikTok and over 15 million views on, I think, what is it, Twitter. And it was about her being child free by choice. She's in her mid 50s. She's living a beautiful, fabulous life. She knew from a very young age that she did not want to have children. And that clearly resonated with a lot of young women who, made that post go viral. And I was reading through some of the comments, and I kind of made a piggyback video to that because I wanted those women to feel supported. Because I do feel that, as women, and for many, many years, so much of our value as women has been centered around having children and being able to bear children. And I wanted the women who were making the bold choice for themselves not to have children to understand that, your womb space energy is still very valuable, and to understand what that is about, that energy, that energy can be utilized to birth so many beautiful things into the world, whether it's business ideas or some kind of scientific creation or whatever it might be. But I would love, for you ladies to kind of touch on that a bit.
I really like the way you. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, I never had that experience of being a woman pressured to have a child. So, and I think that was the benefit of being raised in New York, but I was also raised in a very traditional masculine culture that valued creativity and the art world. Right? So I never had that pressure. And my journey very much has been about being an independent woman and going through a professional career and doing all these kinds of things, and then going through formal womb healing for me to realize that my path should have included children. Right. Wow. So as I mentioned in my 40s, going through the healing because of the energy that I was raised in the New York area, I was definitely influenced energetically to go on this other path that may have not actually have been authentic for me. And I think this is an important topic of conversation in both ways, because culture and the energy of the places that you're living can really dictate and take you off your true life path at a very young age, and you have no idea that it's happening. And so then you go through the process and you look back about how your energy was used in either direction, and you realize that you're not in full control of it in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Natalia, you wanted to chime in?
So for me, I really like the analogy of the womb, and I feel like women in general, I work with a lot of women, and women in general are way more caring, and they have this, I think it's just part of our think process. We like to nourish and grow things. So even when we start working on something, it could be a business idea, it could be just a little project around the house. We we sit down, we prepare, we look into different things. Like, we are very structured in a different way that men usually think. And then when it comes to, the background, the way we grow up, I kind of resonate with Jennifer. In my family, I came from a very traditional family in Ukraine. So according to them, I had to have a kid when I was in my early 20s. But on another hand, I did have this an amazing gift that I think is so crucial. And I think for majority of people, when we read stories about successful people, we see that very often. One thing common to all of them, they all come from different backgrounds, all have different stories, but what common to them, they know what they want. And they listen to that. And for me, I knew exactly what I wanted from my life, and I made a lot of decisions towards that. And it's kind of funny, but looking now back, nobody believed that little girl, but I was able to do a lot of things that I dreamed of. And for, I think, young girls, it's so important to just know what they want and listen to themselves and go with that. And we're afraid to do that, and we're afraid to do that because of the families, because of our communities, surroundings. Sometimes we're just not lucky to have people who support us. I have a friend, she is extremely talented, but her parents are very conservative, and they're amazing people, but they don't support her stepping aside from the conservative life and going to pursue her talents. So in a way, I think it's a very relevant conversation and topic. So I'm glad you guys did that.
Absolutely. I'm really interested, Dr. Jennifer, or do you prefer Jennifer?
I mean, the 3-year-olds like to call me Dr. Jennie. You can call me Dr. whatever it is. You feel comfortable with. I'm good.
I think
when you said you went through your womb healing,
I
would really love to touch on that, because I did something similar. And I actually got certified years ago as a yoni steam practitioner, which that I found very quickly moving to Italy. Like, that was very triggering for some women and very controversial, because they found it very tied to patriarchy. But then I think some women don't understand that some cultures on the planet did not have patriarchy. Like, we had matriarchs in many parts of the world, and that's where it comes from. But anyways, I would love for you to kind of touch on your womb healing and how that led you to this path on your expat journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short version of the 20-something year journey, there was a very specific decision made when I was 18. It was almost like the universe was presenting, do you want to be in the masculine energy or do you want to be in the feminine energy for the next 20 years? And at that time, I was in a very healthy relationship with someone that I met when I was 18. He was supportive of my college education. We dated 5 years. He was a little bit older. He was Catholic and a little bit more traditional than I was, and beautiful soul. And I remember when he looked at me, he said, I want to get married and I think you should have children. And it was in that moment, I was 22. And in that moment, I chose the path of the masculine energy because I said to him, I want to go to graduate school. And he said, I really think you should take a year off and work and we should focus on our relationship. And I said, no. And I remember that decision very vividly, and that set off the next 20 years of my life, that decision that was made early in life. And it was very much a decision to be in the masculine energy, to follow in the footsteps of the men in my family who are all entrepreneurs, and to try to build something. And that was going to make the world a better place, right? Because in our 20s, that's what we desire if we choose the masculine energy. What happened in my late 30s, though, was the beginning of a process that we all go through when we enter into our 40s of the healing, where you get to revisit those choices that were made. And part of the womb healing process is going through the generations of women in your family who've had abuse, trauma, financial abuse, and all the things that get passed down to you that you have no idea have been controlling the decisions in your life. You have no idea that you can't get the business off the ground that you want to get off because you have a family history of poverty that's been passed down to you. You have no idea that you can't get into a relationship because I've actually had to have the energy of, I've had spirits pulled out of my body. I've had family members pulled out of my body. There's energetic interference that happens when you are a lineage breaker for your family. So right now we are definitely at a time where there are many lineage breakers on the planet who are going to be entering a time of doing womb healing work. And when all that energy that is not yours is taken out of that space and you return to who you really are, that is a shocking moment. And that's when you see which path is actually the right one for you. And I think that's, for me, I think it would have been healthy for me to have taken a step back when I was younger to pursue having children because it's actually part of my life path. But at the time and where I was living and the family that I was incarnated in, I don't think it was possible to make that decision at that time. So something does happen later in a woman's life where you really begin to see the real story of the reason why you're here in your life path and the decisions that you made. And you go through whatever grief process you need to go through and to, make sense out of, what that 20 years was like. And you prepare for the next chapter. And I think it's important for women to know that just because you make one decision early in your 20s doesn't mean you're not going to be able to experience the other side of it in your 40s. Like we really do work in 20-year cycles. So now I'm preparing for a different chapter. Whereas a lot of my friends who did have children when they're young, they're getting ready to really launch some major businesses now in their 40s because their kids are older.
Right. I what you said just really touched me in a very deep and profound way because I feel like, and I almost feel like crying because, when my mom passed last year, that was a very pivotal turn for me because like you, I'm also in my 40s. And, it when you lose your mother, it brings on a whole new meaning to womanhood because you're like, wow, okay, all the women who have supported me to this point. God. you have to find it in yourself to move forward. And what is it that you believe in? What are your core values? Who are you really? And I went through so much just last year moving that energy. How can I alchemize that energy? The love that I still have for my mother. How do I work through any of, like you said, the generational things that you have to pull out in order to alchemize that energy into something that's going to be beautiful? Because I do truly believe that um, when you experience pain, grief, whatever it is, if you really choose, if you're really conscious, you can turn that into something beautiful. You know, you trade the ashes for something beautiful. And a lot of that came up for me. And when I got, I did I did some soul work over the winter hibernation, and I just sat with myself. And part of it was an additional womb healing, because when I went through my yoni steam practitioner work, I did some womb healing with a woman who is a spiritual practitioner, and that was so powerful for me, because what it did, and I think kind of like tuning into the theme of tonight, tonight's WombStorm, was that place of deserving. Because I realized so much of my life, I did not feel like I deserved anything. I did not deserve love. I did not deserve money. That one was so huge and pivotal for me, especially the money piece, because coming from American poverty, which I like to call it, always hearing that you don't have, not being properly educated on finances. I just didn't know what to do. And there was a big part of me that when I did start making money, I felt like even from my community, I wasn't supported, because there is a part of that victim energy that you're supposed to stay down, and you're not supposed to elevate yourself. And so I had to get comfortable with making money. And I remember the very first day that I made $10,000 in one day. That was a defining moment for me, because I sat back at the end of the day. I was like, I made $10,000 today, like just today. And it was mind blowing for me. And it opened a window as to like what the possibilities could be. And I remember that same year I went to a program, because I was very big on investing in myself and taking courses and speaking with gurus. And I took a business course. Actually, it was with a woman, Rachel Jane Grover. I don't know if any of you all have heard of her, but she wrote a book called Powerful and Feminine, and she runs a female-centered kind of business entrepreneur program. And I was getting my teacher license through her. It's called The Art of Feminine Presence, but for business. And I remember when I took the business courses, this was only for people who were making six figures. And I sat down, and everyone in the room was making six figures or more per year. And it was the very first time in my life where I felt I was sitting at the table and I deserved to be there. And it was so amazing for me. It was just such a beautiful moment, because I didn't feel less than. I didn't want to shrink. I didn't want to, I felt like, okay, I'm among my peers. We're all doing this thing. We're all, gathering this energy. But like I said, I don't think that I would have even come to that place without the womb healing. And then the additional womb healing that I did over this past winter, there's really about what generational curses do I need to still break, being deserving of love, and learning how to alchemize pain. It all came from that place. So I'm just so grateful that you brought brought that up, and I just wanted to kind of share that, you know, with all of you ladies, because it was just such a pivotal moment, a growth moment for me as a woman.
Thank you, Candice, for sharing that, because I think it will be amazing for all of our listeners today on YouTube. And also, I believe it's the whole, center of this workshop, because the thing is, in all our story, right? And I'm really glad that you kind of brought this. Like in all our story, there's always a place where we thought we didn't deserve something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So in terms of creating something, a really good question to ask her would be, do you feel worthy of everything that you want to create?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have a lot of ideas in our minds. And as you said, entrepreneurship has been, a place where a lot of men have created from control, not from serving.
Right.
It's a very different base to create, right? Because
Absolutely.
if you create from control, then you have to be in control of a lot of things. But if you create from deservingness, that's a whole other base. So I did invite you to feel that place of deserving and think about what brings to you. Like, are you open to create something from that place? Like right now, for example.
I mean, I think for myself now, because I've done the hard work, and by the hard work, I just mean like the deep introspection that it takes to grow as a woman. And that hard work included going to therapy, journaling, having some heart to heart discussions, actually hearing things about myself that I did not want to hear. Um, and, you know, having those good cry sessions where I just had to sometimes look myself in the mirror and just say, yes, you do deserve this. You are worthy of this. And like you said, when you create from that place, it just feels so good because things just flow. And you let go of the control, and you just realize that, everything will be beautiful in the end. And, one of the themes of my life, especially in my 30s, was just creating from a place of magic, creating a magical life. That's what I will always say, create a magical life. Because when I look back on so many segments of my life, there were just, I was just like tripping over the rocks, like just tripping over the rocks, trying to like figure things out. And then once I did let go and I felt deserving, that's when like the floodgates of like love and joy and magic and grace just kind of like flowed out. And it was just a really wonderful place. And I mean, I would love every woman to experience that.
I think it's a lot of things that all three of you said. I think it's that period of time when, we raise in the family, we have specific expectations. We have those expectations because of the environment we were raised in, and it doesn't matter it's good or bad. It's just something that overshadows us. And then in our 20s, I think, especially for girls, it's so important to get to that point when they understand that they have to love themselves. And that for some reason happens very not often in 20s. It happens way later in life. But then that moment when you realize that, okay, I should not love it the way they taught me to. This is, I'm okay. I'm enough. I'm good enough for anything I want to. I want that magical life and I deserve it. And I just will work towards it. That's it. You kind of like drop in all that weight that you were given. And it's okay. We all come with that weight. It's just the matter. Someone get lucky to do it early in life and others don't. And sometimes we just something has to happen in our life to kind of sit back and sit down and say, why am I chasing
Yeah. So
vision?
now I'm going to like the psychology has going to come on, because I think the biggest issue that is going on that's holding women back are for women who are sensitive to energy and sensitive to emotion. So anyone who's an empath, or if the divine feminine is in a man's body in this lifetime, anyone who's sensitive to energy is going to have a harder time, especially if they are in a family with mental illness and any other kinds of trauma or craziness, which is why everyone is healing trauma right now, because it's going to be the energy of the other people that's going to dictate whether or not you're making money. Right. So for me, I learned this at a very young age. I come from a family where one side had nothing. The other side was very wealthy. And the one thing that my mother did do was to make sure that we had Sunday dinners every Sunday so that I could be around the energy of wealth and abundance of the healed aspect of my father's family. And that served me through my 20s. So I was successful in my 20s because of being around the energy of wealth and abundance. And I could see it, how it manifested in the men in the family. And then that was helpful to me. When family members passed on and I transitioned to my 30s, no one taught me as a highly sensitive person the importance of taking care of my physical body and taking care of energy. That was the journey I had to go on in my 30s. That's the healing journey. And when it comes to finances, most women do not understand that relationships that you have with men that you're hooking up with, or with women, relationships that you have in the work environment, bad work environments, toxic apartments, like anything that energetically does not serve you will get energetically placed in your womb and will dictate how much money that you make. So we can have a self-love movement. I love self-love, but self-love is also an energy that's in the body. It's a sub-chakra of the heart chakra that has to be activated through a healing journey, unless you've been incubated like a startup in a really loving, healthy environment. And let's be honest, the United States right now energetically is a shit show of bad energy. It is not a healthy environment. So women are struggling, not because they're working, like not willing to work. They're struggling because the energy of the environment that they're in, and it's in their body, blocking self-love and blocking their money.
Right.
It's
right.
also the outside world, like the social media, the information is so available to everyone. And just think about that, not only girls, but it's the same applies to boys. They go online, they see all those different things, they pulled into 10 million directions, and not a lot of people able to say no. And it takes years to learn to say no often. But if you pulled in many directions, you have no chances to achieve anything. I'm not even talking to start loving yourself. You just will hate yourself more while you're allowing yourself to be pulled in a million directions. So I feel like it's such a bigger problem out there, and that's why we have it's kind of interesting statistic. I came across about it a couple years ago when I was still at Morgan Stanley. We worked on supporting one charity organization that they tried to shift the amount of money that placed into the depressions for young kids. And by young kids, they mean from 0 to 25 years old. Because in the United States, there is less than 3% of entire donations in the United States are placed into that area. Everything else goes somewhere else. But we have such a growing issue right now that for some reason nobody wants to address. And I feel like it's already getting it's getting to the regulators, it's getting to the government. They talk more often about this because of issues that come out of it.
Yes, but it's also because we don't teach young women how to use their powerful energy. And the reason why I was able to walk the path that I walked was in my early 30s, after a crappy Saturn return and the start of a massive healing journey. I manifested, with the help of the universe, 7 figures worth of money. So I have not had to work necessarily the way that people had to work in the past, decade. So I could focus on my healing journey. But looking back at that time period now of, how that money came to be, there was no doubt in my mind. I didn't do that alone. right? So understanding how energy works on this planet from a spiritual and a science perspective really is going to be the key for the future of young people unlocking the wealth, and that energy sits in the womb. Like we can sit there, we're getting really obsessed with like the light right now. We can sit there and try to use our intuition to manifest it. I've lived in that energy for half my life. Things did not start unlocking until I started to do the womb healing work, because that is what's holding women back. It's energetic, and it's so easy to fix once that's recognized, and it can be fixed on a larger scale.
Absolutely.
There's no reason why it can't.
So how do you think being an expat right now helped with this transformation in your businesses, for example?
Because the energy outside the United States is normal. I cannot even tell you what the energy has been like in the United States the past few years. I mean, between the earth energy, where there's literally stuff like happening on the planet, and then the spiritual energy that's come into the United States to, you know, for transformation and healing purposes for sensitive people is crazy making. And when you're in a crazy making environment, you don't make money. Right. So this is, you know, again, in other parts of the world, the Middle East is like falling apart. Are they going to be able to rebuild more quickly? Yeah, because they actually have access to a large amount of capital. But if you look at things that just happened in Turkey or Syria and places that have been struggling financially, like this all happening for a reason, but trying to build a business when the energy of basically the root chakra is falling apart is impossible. And the United States is the epicenter of supposed to be the world's security. Like, so we should all be concerned if the United States is having problems and cannot get its shit together, because that energetically it's supposed to be serving as our root chakra. So being in Europe has been great because I can ground and focus on just my stuff without picking up on everything else around me.
One of the best books that I've read so far is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza, which I recommend everybody reading, because it's just, it confirmed things that I knew intuitively that was happening, but he explained it so well from a scientific perspective. Going back to what you said, Dr. Jennie, about the womb healing and the energy shift that's needed. And that's, you know, and that's what's going to take for women to shift and really grow in all the areas of their life, socially, financially, etc. And I think, like you said, understanding how to shift your energy, how to understand where the best energy is for you to really grow. And I think it just starts with, you know, asking yourself those questions and really diving deep. And I would suggest, like I said, all of you to get that book because it's absolutely amazing, because he explains from a scientific perspective how a lot of this energy works. Because for some people, it can sound very, I guess, woo-woo, or, you know, or very like hocus pocus. But, you know, when you understand it from a scientific perspective and how everything works, you are able to transform your life.
Well, I have a question, right? The Middle East has a lot of money. They have a lot of money. There's no question, you know, Dubai, a lot of money.
Right.
Why do they have so much money? Because the spiritual energy has been turned on. Their problem has not been making money. Their problem has been bringing in science as the balance. Their problem is bringing in the masculine energy to balance what's going on there. But they've been really good at figuring out how to make money. So I think, you know, part of this is like us, you know, it's not just the science. It really is the combination of the spiritual and the science, because there are lots of very spiritual cultures that really need the science. Making a crap ton of money. Why is that happening? Because there's an energy supporting it. And we should really begin questioning in other parts of the world where we're struggling, what is really going on? Like, what is really blocking our culture or our country from making that money? Because we need to start thinking about fixing larger issues and not just the individual problem. Like, we should not all be frustrated. We should all have more than enough. And if that's not happening, we need to start questioning what is really, really going on a larger scale.
It's definitely part of the mentality. And I think to, what happens in Middle East is there is more young people who move there and there's opportunities, they take advantage of it. But when they go there, they have this belief that this is a land where I can make money because of all of those opportunities. It's became very open. But I want to say something that's very important to me to deliver to whoever is listening. It doesn't matter where you are, there is a way to build wealth. And it can start from $50. And if your income is $50,000, you can build wealth. And if your income is $200,000 and you have $300,000 in debt, there's a way for you to build wealth too. It's not something given from a birth. It doesn't have to be that way. It's just something that you need to put work into, and it's all possible out there. There is a whole system out there that built for you to do that. You just need to sit down and do it. And that can be done anywhere, including United States. United States is a great land of opportunities. I understand where Dr. Jennie is coming from too. There is a lot of issues, and especially I think the politics here right now having a huge issue. And that definitely will block a lot of young people wanting to come here and wanting to bring more opportunities into the country. However, it really, you can achieve same result. And now it's so easy for so many people because we have such a beautiful thing as an internet. Now we have such a beautiful thing coming into our lives as, decentralized payment system. We have so much other stuff coming in this world that makes it even more easier for people to make their own paths, not counting on anyone else, any country or anything like that. And I think that's very beautiful, that you don't really need to be in a specific location to become someone or to build something.
Well, I think my question was going to be as far as, what is happening on the planet, because I do believe that ultimately, yes, you do make the choices that you need to make for yourself to create wealth. For me, it has been, how can I create the path of least resistance for myself? That has been the biggest, I think, part of my journey, and the reasons why I left to move abroad. I left a salon. When I left for Italy, I had a salon that was making 6 figures. And I knew that it wasn't giving me everything that I needed to be happy. And so I needed to, leave in order to gain whatever it is I need to be happy. And, I know a lot of people are shifting into the, the expat world, the expat lifestyle, digital nomading, to find that shift, to find that
Happiness.
Yeah, that happiness, that place where they want to be, so that they can feel in alignment, so that they can feel safe, that they can feel wellness, or whatever it is that they feel they deserve to have in life. And I think there is the practical side to the wealth building component, like you said, like the strategies. But I do also believe that there's also the spiritual component and the energetic component to wealth building also, because for me, building wealth, money is a frequency and an energy. Like, that's just like part of my belief system. And I think it goes hand in hand, because you can't have, just the energy and without, a necessary, like a strategy or an action, which, and like I said, that's the whole theme of our WombStorm, is actions and creation from a place of deservingness. So I think that there's space for the two. But my question for you ladies is, and before we kind of shift gears in the conversation, is how do you think we can come together as women to clear the energy, to create strategies for wealth building and shifting that energy, even if it's just a mindset shift for wealth building? What are some things that we can do, even with her expat life in the WombStorm? Are there any practical things we can do for that.
I think you already started. This is part of it, the empowering woman. I feel like just bringing women together and having those conversations with them important. There is a lot of questions out there, and there is, I think, a lot of hesitation as well. So the only, like any big event in our life, we need to have someone who's holding our hand. And to someone it's a mother. To me personally, it's my mom. She's a trooper. But when it comes to my life, but many people don't have that. I mentor a lot of students when it comes to their profession. They don't really have anyone to talk about this stuff. Most of them don't. So it's just that, bringing people together and letting them be the part of the community where they can ask questions and they can have a conversation. They know that people will be happy to sit down and talk to them.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that needs to start shifting, especially in more traditional cultures, is working with women, not necessarily on the practicalities of life, but really honing this energetic and spiritual side. And for many cultures, it's going to be a recalibration and reworking of the story of religion through the lineage to understand how much power the divine feminine energy has to create on this planet. And when young women step into their power and begin to say no to toxic dating relationships, and when they begin to say no to opportunities that aren't quite good enough because they want something more, and when they begin to understand that their sexual energy is their creative energy, and they honor and respect it in a way that goes beyond self-love, it goes to understanding that this is legacy building energy that makes the world a better place. That's when things start to shift, because that's going to force the divine masculine in men to step up and do their healing work. And that energy needs to go into our financial systems and needs to clean out and make everything start operating with a level of integrity where this next generation doesn't have to go through what we have been through, or our grandparents have been through, or our great-grandmothers have been through, that we deserve to be able to serve the world in a way where we don't have to financially struggle and we can receive what it is that we need to receive to live and do the work that we're supposed to be doing at this time on this planet. But it's really going to come from a place of women understanding just how powerful that energy is and stepping up and demanding more so that the men go do their healing work.
I actually did a journal called Money, Love, Magic. And it's kind of like just a basic inspirational journal that I created for people just to start understanding what it takes to shift your mind into feeling like you deserve to build wealth and that you deserve to have money and tapping into the creativity of creating wealth. And just going through all of those questions, those healing questions that you need to ask, like what kind of conversations were had when you were younger about money? Did someone tell you was there ever a point in time that someone told you something that made you feel like you can't have the amount of money that you want to have, amongst a whole other host of questions? And the topic of sexual energy is really a big topic for me, because one, I've written like 4 books, and in some of those books I have talked about me being a sexual abuse survivor. And so a woman being able to own her sexual energy and understanding that orgasm is an energy that you can use for creativity is it's a concept that maybe not a lot of people have heard about, but it definitely is an energy that people need to know about, especially women, because it is a very creative energy, and you can use that energy to alchemize. And so that's definitely something that I think more women need to know about, and be able to heal and make conscious decisions. And one of the things, I'll say this last thing before we kind of shift gears with another question. One of the things that I always say the most important decision or an empowering decision that a woman can make regarding her sexuality is deciding who you allow inside of you. So I will so I will leave the topic on that note. Just know that, ladies, that's one of the most powerful decisions you can make and conscious.
I will add really quick. I don't know if you guys read the Michelle Obama's book, but I loved the way she was telling how her grandmother taught her mom, and then how her mom talked to her about the sexuality. And around like 14 years old, her mom told her, "You don't need a man to have a good time." So like, just stop thinking that you need men for that. And I think it's crucial for women to understand they don't need a man in general for the pleasure. So that's not something they have to go and, they should look at the relationship in a different way, the way we do when we're young. And I think it was really amazing the way she said it.
That's a better option than allowing a toxic person to tap into your sexual energy. And I always say that, like, that's a better option than allowing someone toxic.
Right. But there's also the other side of that, of how much learning could be taking place if we taught people who have that sexual energy, who are attracting certain things in, how to take it to another level. And I think that, emotionally centered people with a lot of sexual energy who happen to be artists or happen to be able to channel or, live in that world, do not get the education they need at a young age to understand how all this works. And so it's not necessarily, oh, don't date the toxic person. It's, we really, in college years, need to have a class where probably next to, it's like wealth management 101 here, and then how to manage your energy over here, because the people who are most capable of healing this planet are the ones with the most sexual energy, who don't get an education until their 30s or 40s of how to use it.
Right. I agree.
There's no reason for it.
No, there's absolutely so much education that needs to take place centered around that. And, maybe we'll have another conversation about that at some point, because I think sexual energetic alchemy is such an interesting topic in and of itself. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit by asking this question, which is, how can women move past the competitiveness or the cattiness of a toxic male-centric work environment? Or, anyway, let me make sure. Okay, she's back. All right, you're back. Okay, so I'll rephrase the question. How can women move past the competitiveness or the cattiness of the toxic male-centric work environment?
I think that you said a really important thing, Dr. Jennie, about how being an expert shifted your energy, and it's related to that because it's about the contribution, right? That you do for the place you are in, for the place where you come from, and for the people related to you in both places. So I think for us women, we have not ever been trained to contribute to one another, right? We have been trained to like mistrust one another, like we are afraid that we get stabbed in the back, and all this mixes up when we try to create, alliances for ourselves. What do you think?
I share experience that kind of, I think taught a lot for me when it comes to starting working. And I worked in finance for all my career, so I worked with men mostly. But it's all started in the end of the middle school. I had the English teacher in Ukraine who knew nothing about English. Let's just face it. She never even been outside of the country. But she didn't like me. She didn't like me. It was I was very shy. I could not speak back. I was also going for the gold medal, meaning I was studying all excellent A's, and she just kind of had the problem with I don't know. There was like this whole thing. But one day I was already learning English, and I had a friend who was coming to visit Ukraine for summers. His grandma was living there from New York. And so I spent a lot of summers with him and his friends. They would like go fishing, and I was just like little girl running around them. I learned pretty good English at that point of time. And she said something to me, not good at the class. And I stood up and I said very horrible things in English, which I will not repeat to her. And to me at that time, because I didn't really knew English that well, it didn't mean that it was so bad. You know, it's like when you talk in foreign language, you're just like, it's not that bad, right? It was more like cool. The first time in my life, I stood up and said something back, and that woman respected me for the rest of my school time. And I was shocked. I was shocked that I thought I started a war, and it completely was a different reaction. And then when I went in college and then I started to work at Morgan Stanley, I had a lot of those moments when it was what right now there's actually the whole compliance trainings in the big firms, and it's called the aggressive racism. When it's not technically, it's nothing to do of the color. It's mostly saying something like, for example, their example is if you have curly hair and you straighten it up, and someone at work told you that, oh, you look so much better with straight hair. It's like a compliment, right? But what do you mean? Like, what, you didn't like my natural hair, or do I look different or something? Or if you don't speak a language, that's the language is not the first language. Someone says something like, oh, that's fine that you make this mistake. It's not your first language, something like that. So it's not critical. It's not super defensive, but it does stays in the minds of people. It does sticks. And that's what I used in my career. You know what? You should do this training. Really useful. Because if I do go and report you, you know you will lose your job. And that's true. People do lose their job if someone's being reported. And obviously I would never wanted to report anyone, anything like that. But I let them know that I understand way more than they think I can understand. And always cause the respect. I will say majority of my friends from that life, from the corporate America life, are men, and they respect me and they're still great friends. But there are some men that, you know, maybe were not as welcoming in the beginning, and that's how I made them to respect me. So I don't know if that's a good way or bad way. It worked for me. I know that not everyone is bold enough to say back stuff, but I just learned it so early and I was surprised that it worked, and I kind of kept using it. Sometimes when you see people putting you down, just right away say something back, especially if there's other people around, because that person is so embarrassed for the second, they will think twice before saying something like this to someone else. And I don't know if it's a good way or not, but just wanted to share.
No, I mean, I think, I think my journey, I have been all in my masculine energy in my 20s, all in my feminine energy in my 30s, and now we're integrating. I think when you learn to love the true divine masculine energy on this planet as much as you love the feminine energy, that's when real magic happens. And I think that too many women do not have role models of what true divine masculine energy actually looks like. And that's supposed to come in through our schools. Like, even if you don't have a father like that, it's supposed to come in through our schools. It's supposed to come in through our government. It's supposed to come in through the structures of our society. And it's not happening right now. So I think women need to give themselves a little bit of a break. And when they're going through this process, because the divine masculine energy, the healthy version of it, needs to come back to this planet and provide the systems and the structures and the things that we need in order for the feminine to create something new. And I think that when that mindset shift, that story gets rewritten, you start to see everyone's behavior very differently, because the man who doesn't respect a woman has too much feminine energy in their body and not enough masculine energy. It's the rebalancing of the energy on this planet that's going to be needed. But once you start seeing things from that perspective, everything shifts. You don't take anything personally anymore, and it's easy to say something back.
Yeah,
It's easy
absolutely.
to, and with a sense of humor, like it's just easy to set the boundaries and not, go down the rabbit hole. But when we're on one side or the other, it's just a very difficult process. And we don't have any help right now. The structures are falling apart. Like this is a hard time in the world right now.
I think this kind of ties into the other question I was going to ask, and that is creating systems that can be infused into corporate structures or entrepreneurial spaces that kind of break up that system and that energy flow. Like perhaps, a lot of competitiveness is based on outranking people, promotions, etc. So I was actually thinking about this and I was like, well, what if there were group promotions? Like, what if people didn't get individual promotions, but somehow in workplaces, you had promotions that were based on group instead? Like, am I making sense to you ladies? Like, are there ways that we can infuse different structures to kind of start breaking that up a little bit?
They already do that in tech firms. They do the team promotions. When you work on the projects and different teaming, they already do that, and that allows a healthy competition between the teams.
Yes, I agree, because in some tech companies, people also started role shifting. Like they do each other's work, and then they see different perspectives, so they can they can know what the other person's work takes.
Right. I mean, this is not supposed to be this hard. I mean, for over 60 years, the psychologists have done the relationship science work that tells like people how like what needs to happen in a group of people or a one-to-one to make the changes happen. The issue is that the divine masculine energy that's in tech and some of these other industries doesn't communicate with the scientists and the other people who have actually already done this work. The integration hasn't happened yet, right? So in the health and wellness, sectors, when we are, talking about, dealing with people, we have a very different process than what happens in a tech firm. Like there needs to be more collaboration and discussion between the industries to kind of figure out, okay, like based on energy, this is the way we do it. Based on science, this is the way to do it. Based on this, and this is the way we do it. Can we come up with a solution that's actually going to help all people? Because the traditional hierarchy system, not going to work, because everyone's going to end up on a beach in Costa Rica until, the system changes. Like that's just, we're tired. Like, we need a break.
Right.
So
I'll wait there until it's all set.
The next call will be in Costa Rica. No, until this all changes, like what is the incentive for a woman who's embraced her divine feminine power and making her own money to go back into a corporation? None. So, I mean, I think we're just at this really interesting point of, can the corporations connect with the people who actually already know how this works, get their act together and call people back in? Otherwise, we're going to the beach. Like there's no point.
And it's a very interesting time in corporations in general right now. They do not tailor their workspace towards what people want now. They just don't, and they expect people to follow those old ways. And I'm one of those. I left, and I'm never gonna do it again.
Right.
I love my career. Right. There's, I love the whole thing, and I will do it in a heartbeat again back in my 20s. But right now, I have my freedom. I want to be on the Costa Rica beach. I want to be there a couple months a year, and that's it. And I should not ask my employer if I can or not. I cannot do that. That's no longer a thing. But I needed to grow up to that. Everyone has its own journey. But younger kids, all of my young entrepreneurial clients, they want just something that they want. They don't want to be told something. They don't want to spend hours and they want to work on something that they're passionate. They will work hard on it. But yeah, it's just the corporate world has to tailor their world towards the new generation, the new desires. Women no longer have the same problem they had before. By the way, Candace, the book that you suggested, Smart Women Don't Retire, They Break Free.
Oh, yes.
Such a good book. And it's just it's really good for women and all ages. I honestly don't think it's only for retirees. And they were saying how, back at the time, women were, they didn't have jobs, they were at home, and that was their set. They didn't really have any flexibility of freedom besides their man. And then they became a widower, and they used the remaining assets to basically survive. It was just like a process. Then, it's shifted to our mother's generations, now our generation. But at the end of the day, it's all shifts, and careers have to shift with that. We should not stick with the old way. So it's interesting to see how it will be changing.
And I think, one of the takeaways that I want women who will be listening to this WombStorm to really understand is, and at least, really being a part of our community, is commit to the change. Commit to, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a female, which, I mean, that's our community, commit to infusing whatever it is that you're doing with the practices and the principles that are going to set free, set people free, set your employees free, or whoever you're going to touch, free of the chains of corporate America and a lot of or not just corporate America, but just the corporate world and the toxicity. Because something has to shift. And I think that the change starts with us. It starts with these conversations. And more so, it really starts with the knowledge and the commitment to do better. Because when you know better, you do better. And I hope after this conversation, women really, have something to run with and move forward to shift like the structures that you can create. And so what I want to ask, I guess like the last question that I want to ask is, how can we create feminine business structures that create a thriving income that aren't based on slaving one's life away? And investment structures. I'm really curious to hear some of your input. I came up with a few, which are business hours, maybe in staff or in-house childcare, remote work when possible. But I would love to hear some of you ladies' ideas about how we can infuse and create feminine business structures.
I mean, this has been the realm of what artists have done since the beginning of time, because they're the wisdom keepers of the feminine energy. So they tend to flow. They'll flow with the cycles of nature. They'll flow with the cycles of the moon. I personally don't take clients on Mondays and Fridays. Those are divine feminine days. I'm not going to do in-person work on those days because I can make my own schedule. So I do other quieter work is energetically that's supported on Mondays and Fridays. I think it's hard for corporations to understand the mindset and the wisdom of the artists and the creatives on this planet who've been holding this energy since the beginning of time. We need to meet in the middle. We need to collaborate, but there needs to just be more flexibility.
Yeah, I think it's more comes down to, especially for women, in general, I want to, if the woman planning a family, like she should be focusing on that. That's her priority. It doesn't matter. So for me, when I hire, to me, what's most important is them being responsible. And that's okay making one mistake. It's absolutely fine. That's how we learn. But if you keep repeating the same mistake, I will be not okay with that. It doesn't matter. You sit with me in the office or you're at home. To me, it really doesn't matter. So as long as those things come done, the way everyone has different life. I cannot assume my employees will have the same lifestyle I do. I want them to have what they want, and I will accommodate to that. As long as they responsible, they treat my clients well, the client treat them well, that's just as equally important to me, and my clients know that. And they respond, like, they just, you know, avoid mistakes, because again, mistakes hurt clients. I'm not, if I had like some sort of product, that's different, but I work with people, right? So I think it comes down to what Dr. Jennie said, the flexibility. I don't need to set up the box for my employees. I think they can build their own boxes, and we are very good with building our own boxes.
Absolutely. I think that is key. And I think too, like just putting it into the actual structure. So actually writing out the policies for your business. Like, okay, these are the official practices of our business structure, of my business structure, because I find when people understand that it's policy, it makes it more official for them. So they're more willing to get on board with whatever change. And I also feel that with that change, maybe having women who understand how this works, going to businesses to educate, to educate leadership about how this can be impactful, not only for the bottom line, but also for the health and well-being of everyone who you're going to touch, including your employees, the clients, etc., because it's a ripple effect. And I know I've spoken about it before, but one of the things I did when I owned my salon is I kind of embarked on that whole journey, and I did, the breastfeeding hours, and so and so needs to go pick her kids up from school, so let's go ahead and take on her clients, or so and so's daughter got sick at school and she needs to take off, so let's rally around and help her with her clients, because I feel like when you have that cooperative, when you have that cooperative energy. I'm sorry, Marlene. So when you have that cooperative energy, things just flow a lot better. One of the things that I'm doing, I'm sorry, I just had to check some of my notes. One of the things that I'm doing is I am working with a neuroscience, a scientist, and her name is, why can't I remember her name? Oh, Kayla. I'm sorry. She goes by the name BioCurious Kayla. And she is all about studying female neuroscience and biochemics. And she actually goes into, the corporate level to leadership, et cetera. And she talks to them about how the current structure is not even healthy for women. It's raising cortisol levels, which is, causing weight gain, stress, which causes, leads to, all sorts of other health issues. And, just little by little changing that. So, like I said, I would love to see women really commit to changing the structure. We have to be the change that we want to see. And like you said, Dr. Jennie, moving forward to bring that level of light and energy to the world so that we can live the life that we really deserve. We have to be the ones to do that. I just
I mean, it's already there. It's not adopted by corporations. I mean, if you ask a psychologist who has my level of training, what was the single most important part of their training? It's not the coursework. It's the thousands of hours of one-on-one supervision that we have with a mentor and a superior who's further ahead in the field. So by nature, the reason why people go into this field is not necessarily to learn through the coursework, which is fun and exciting, but it's the mentorship and the supervision. We have thousands of hours of group and one-on-one mentorship and supervision where we can ask questions, where there's no fear, our emotions are held. We do this for like a decade. The amount of healing that happens when you go through that kind of training and you have that kind of scaffolding and supervision and relational support changes things. And from what I understand from my corporate clients that are coming to me, no one has any support. And if they're going to supervision, it's to make sure that you did your paperwork. It's not doing anything relational. So it's like, why are we wasting time? And there's no reason to waste time anymore. The research is there. Other professions have figured out how to do it. So just implement it. And when you're done, let me know. I'll come back from the beach. But until then, I'm probably going to be in Costa Rica.
Well, the very last question, no, wait, there's still a lot of feedback. The very last question that I wanted to ask before we close was, how can women build more confidence to take risks, particularly to invest outside of real estate, or, you know, we can include real estate too, but how do you think women can just build more confidence in order to take those risks that they need to step out on their intuition and go for their dreams?
I actually did a masterclass that I started with a very similar question. But I will just answer in a few simple ways. I think for any person, and especially women, it's important to understand its wealth. And by wealth, I mean human capital, right? So we all reach it in our own way. We don't need to be talented. We can learn a skill and take our skill anywhere we want to go with. We need to have income. Without income, there's nothing, right? And we need to have the savings. And by savings, I don't talk about investments. I'm talking about emergency fund. All those three things build up your confidence so much that if you have them, you have confidence in yourself. You have, you don't tie to your job as much, because if something happens in your life tomorrow, you have the emergency fund to fall back.
You broke up just a little bit there.
And then eat all of those extra income investments, because at that point, it's not something you reap in yourself out of your, you know, daily spendings that you really need. That's something that goes and builds on the side. So I feel like that base, the foundation, has to be there in order for us to be confident. And a lot of people don't build that and start investing, and it's a huge mistake, because I see a lot of young people, and especially because so much available out there, like Robinhood's a great platform, but so many young people use it so wrong, make so many mistakes, and lose so much money. It's insane. But it's, again, that base is incredibly important to build that confidence.
So I would say, as someone who's been on a journey where I did manifest 7 figures worth of money, that money is not going to fix your self-esteem or anything that's causing the insecurity. The money makes it possible for you to go and do your adventure and your exploration work. And I have found that my young clients right now, once they are financially set, or even my clients in their 40s, once they are, like, there is some structure, they're still too scared to go on an adventure. Right. So the confidence comes from facing fears and doing things out of your comfort zone. So becoming an expat, probably one of the best ways to build your confidence as a woman. Traveling by yourself, great way to go build your confidence as a woman. Going to Argentina, hiring a really sexy tango dancer and doing a private tango lesson when you're uncomfortable with intimacy is going to help your self-confidence. Like, we have to rebuild the systems and structures post-COVID, but the confidence building comes from facing fear and doing new things and going on an adventure, because adventure is tied to the masculine energy, and we as women, we need our own masculine energy. That's what helps with the confidence building. I think it's a big problem for people sitting in their homes right now out of fear because of what's going on in the world. I think we should be traveling more, as long as their basic financial stability is there. But I think in the United States specifically, there's many people that should be pushing themselves right now to go grow and work on their confidence, and they're not right now. And that as a psychologist, worries me that that's not happening right now.
I know one of the things that I did, particularly when I was in my growth phase after I got divorced, was I just started learning to trust my intuition by just going with the gut feeling. Anything that I wanted to do that I felt very strongly about, I just did it. And I think in doing so, it did help me to get over my fears. And one of my favorite quotes is like, everything fun and magical in life is on the other side of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Going abroad was like like you said, that was like one of the biggest pushes out of my comfort zone that helped me to gain so much confidence as a woman. But I think the more you get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you do start to build that confidence in yourself, because then you begin to trust yourself. And I think one of the beautiful things about being a woman in my mid 40s now is being a woman I trust myself. But I don't think I would have reached that level of trust had I not gone through that fire and that, being uncomfortable, um, and pushing myself through, and knowing that, I really can do it. And, that gut feeling that I followed, it was so dead on. It was so dead on, and it was so wonderful. And the whole ride was amazing. And even the little hiccups that you might have, as long as you don't take them, I think, too personally, and you take them in stride as part of your journey,
Yeah.
for me, it's just all good. So I think that that's, a great way.
And I think we also need to trust, like, whether you believe in the universe or not. When I think about like how this journey got started for me out of my comfort zone, it was my inner feminine being comfortable with the divine masculine energy in men who offered opportunities for me to grow, and I said yes.
Mm-hmm.
When we say no, help shows up in other people.
Yeah.
If someone offers you, hey, do you want to go on this weekend trip? Do you want to go for a hike? Do you want to go try something new? And you always say no, you're turning down opportunities from the universe to go work on the very thing that you need to go work on, right? So it's the fear that needs to be transmutated, because people always show up when it's the right time to help you grow. We're relational beings. Like, we don't need to do it alone.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. What's the
And
saying?
I feel like all of us
Okay.
had that experience of going somewhere by ourselves and doing something and realizing we're not alone. There's, for some reason, when you by yourself, you have the most support. Because you're by yourself, you're just open for that way more rather than when you're with someone. I think both of you mentioned a little bit about it, but I just kind of wanted to point out, it's very important to understand that once you have that comfort to in any wealth or personal or at home, it doesn't mean it will make you happy. Like that bravery that we talk about, that's what's important. That's what make that step. That's what will make you happy, not having money in your bank account. And I listened to something recently that it was saying, someone's like, are you rich? Like, do you have possessions? And the man was saying that I don't consider money in my bank a richness. Like, life and experiences, that's my richness. And I think that's what people have to understand. Just getting money in your bank account will not make you happy, fulfilled, or anything like that. You just have to stand up and go and push yourself to the other side, to the magical side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with that, most people don't understand. With that money becomes the responsibility to do the journey, because now you don't have any excuses.
Right.
Exactly.
And I
it's
think
never
that's what's going to start to happen now. People just manifested a whole bunch of money during COVID, and now you're going to be like, all right, that yoga class, that trip to go see the shaman in South America, whatever it is that you need to go do, you have no excuse now. So what is really holding you? What is holding you back? And we're going to start to see which countries, like which cultures, really take a hold of the opportunities that have been presented. And we'll see.
Absolutely.
We'll see what happens worldwide.
Absolutely. The last question that I want to ask you, ladies, before we close, and I do apologize because Mara is having some technical difficulties, and we're experiencing a lot of feedback when she unmics. But I want to know, what tips can you give for women to really settle into, take this information from this WombStorm, this conversation that we've had, whatever has resonated, and use that womb space energy to create? So, what kind of tips, whether it be meditation or whatever the case may be, do you think women can kind of add into their practice to alchemize the energy of this conversation and the knowledge that they've received from this conversation to grow, go, and do better?
I think for me, what women should take time to do is to, in a way, meditation, whatever. Everyone has its own way to sit down and just kind of think about whatever you need to think about. But you have to set a time aside to understand, to listen to yourself and ask yourself where you're right now, where you want to be. And that where you want to be, it takes time to find and picture and draw in your mind. And that's what we need to start with. We need to make sure we know where we're going, then and then build the action plan. But without that, you can build whatever you want. You will build like random steps rather than a ladder. So I think from this session, what's important for women is to take time to think of what is that you want.
Yeah, and I think it's important to recognize, are you having problems with the idea portion of figuring this out? Or are you having problems with the implementation portion? Because that, whatever direction that is, that means that there's not an integration of the masculine feminine energy. So if we're not manifesting, it's because we actually need more masculine energy. And if are having trouble thinking because there's other things going on, then we need to quiet and still. So if we're having trouble thinking, meditation, sitting, great. Maybe a yoga practice, great. If we're having trouble implementing, we actually need to get into the physical body, and we need to start moving the blockages out of the body. I think that energy needs to be able to flow from the top of the head down into the bottom of the feet. So I think, because it depends on, what culture you're coming from. The energy of that culture makes one of those easier than the other. So sometimes it's movement and sometimes it's sitting still, but it's your own inner wisdom that gets to, make the choice and determine what works for you.
Or simply put, the way Camden said, listen to your gut.
Yes, listen to your gut. And I think one tip that I want to leave for the ladies who will be listening to this is, again, get quiet. But one of the things that has been so helpful for me to get into my womb space is just sitting still, lying still, and actually putting my hands on my womb space and my heart space. It kind of gives me a connection to those physical locations, and just doing a meditation from that place and creating that energy flow. And then also doing a lot of gratitude journaling. Gratitude journaling is something that I started doing, I believe, probably back in the late 1990s. And it's something that I continue to this day. But I feel like what that does is it just opens up my heart space to receive and let go and flow of so much that's going on, and helps me to really get quiet. And, I feel like there is so much power in just being grateful and sending out that energy. And then just as you are, meditating and maybe doing your gratitude work, anything that has come up during this conversation, and even ask questions. Sometimes while I'm doing gratitude journaling, I will write questions that come into my mind of how you can utilize this WombStorm information to be better, to do better, to implement new things into your business, etc. Ask those questions and just feel your way through it and see what comes up for you. And then take the steps. If it's something that feels uncomfortable for you, note that. Even if it's something that we've said that feels uncomfortable for you, ask yourself the question, why does that feel uncomfortable? And explore that, because I think those are the types of questions that can lead you on a journey to something very beautiful, and being able to create something that a life that you love, a business that you love, um, and really shift a lot of things for you. And I think, in alignment of, our theme, which is action and creation from a place of deserving, I just really want women to know that you do deserve it. And once you really feel that you deserve it, doors will definitely open for you. And you're going to connect with people that you need to connect with. And for me, it's never failed for me when I have followed that path. But at any rate, I want to go ahead and thank both Natalia and Dr. Jennie and also Mar, I'm sorry, and also Mar for joining us uh, in this wonderful conversation, the very first WombStorm. I think that it was wonderful conversation, delightful, and very heavy hitting in a lot of ways, what we covered and the things that we touched on. And again, we will be doing many, many more in the future. This is the first of many conversations. And ultimately, like I said in the very beginning, we are going to host an in person womb storm and implement a lot of these meditations and practices and things like that, so that we can be the women that brings forth the changes that are needed all over the world. Um, Again, if you want to, Natalia, I just want to kind of do some plugs. Natalia is her Expat Life partnered wealth planner. Please reach out to her if you want to do any sort of wealth planning, wealth building. She's absolutely wonderful woman, and it's been such a delight to know her and have her on board for women who want to live abroad. Because one of the pieces that I feel a lot of women who are living abroad don't have is they don't have someone that they trust to go to, and they're just kind of just out there. They're not making any plans or strategies to create wealth. And then also, please reach out to Dr. Jennie. We just connected with her, and we're bringing her on board. I think she's a wealth of knowledge, and just such a powerhouse in what she does as far as energy work, and also trauma work, and getting over whatever it is that's holding you back. I really feel that she is a wonderful woman to speak with and work with in regards to that. And we'll definitely have their information in the information box to this video. And then, of course, her Expat Life, we are here for all of your expat needs. We're here to help you advance your global lifestyle. And so, again, we will leave the links to her Expat Life, because we want you to become a member. We have a wonderful co-work and play membership, as well as career coaching membership for you ladies who are wanting to live, love, work abroad, create businesses abroad, and just live a wonderful global lifestyle. Again, I want to thank all of you all for your time. And until the next time, we bid you a wonderful farewell. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.